Rutgers University and Princeton University have shared many rivalries throughout the years, but the biggest rivalry of them all was over a couple cannons. We sat down with University archivist Thomas Frusciano and asked him to give us a detailed history of the Cannon War.
Well, the Cannon War is kind of an interesting student life event that took place in the late 19th century. There's always been this kind of rivalry between Princeton and Rutgers. And of course, we have the first football game, which took place in 1869, which really set the rivalry in motion. Now, the students used to take the Pennsylvania Railroad back and forth, and Rutgers students would come across the Princeton students at the time. And the Princeton students always taunted the Rutgers students about a particular cannon that they said that was stolen by Princeton from the Rutgers College campus, which would have been the old Queens campus, and brought back to Rutgers.
The state of New Jersey played a prominent role in the War of 1812.
In the War of 1812, the British had harbored in Sandy Hook. And the folks in New Brunswick were worried about the defense of the city, and they had requested from Princeton the large cannon that was brought to New Brunswick. That remained after, and it was never attacked in the War of 1812, so there was no need for the cannon, but it remained in New Brunswick, and presumably there was requests for it to be returned to Princeton, and it was never returned. So finally the militia company called the Princeton Blues came up and actually just went and took it and brought it back.
The Rutgers faithful would not go down without a fight, especially with Princeton gloating.
And it was always thrown to these students at Rutgers that come and get it by the Princeton students. So they took up the challenge, and then one night, I believe it was the night, or actually the morning of April 26, 1875, 9 students went to Milltown, were able to hire a wagon and a driver and go down to Princeton in the middle of the night. Came across the cannons. They parked their wagon, saw where they had to go, and it was on the Princeton campus. Went to and saw these 2 cannons and presumably thought they had the right one. So then they commenced with the digging up of the cannon, and the driver had to come help them out, and they had to lug it to the wagon, and it took a real long time to do that. And they finally were able to get it up through crowbars and hickory sticks and all sorts of things to get it up onto this wagon, and crept out of the town of Princeton and arrived at Old Queens in New Brunswick around 4 o'clock in the morning.
While the fight for the cannon has died down, Rutgers students may look to once again reclaim what they believe is rightfully theirs.
The one documented incident to try to recreate the Cannon War occurred in 1946, when a group of Rutgers College students took this old Ford and went down and in the middle of the night again and located a cannon and tied it to the bumpers. But at the time, then all of a sudden there was some police activity that they discovered that there was something was going on, and students of Princeton discovered, and it was a melee that took place. But also what the Rutgers students had done, they had brought a lot of red paint with them. And what happened in the melee, both sides were covered with red paint, but they all scattered as they took off. And I think what happened was they had the cannon tied with rope or a chain to the back bumper of the Ford, and when the Ford went to take off, not realizing how heavy and how deep the cement was, is that basically it tore the Ford, I think, just kind of conked out and kind of backfired, and the bumper came off or something, in the back of the car came off, and that's when everyone was alerted to what was going on, and there was this melee, and everybody was covered with red paint.
Despite the friction between the 2 schools, it is likely the rivalry will never be the same.
I'm not sure that the rivalry will ever exist the way it used to, and I don't suspect that Rutgers students or Princeton students would bother to do that, but one never knows.
To learn more about the New Jersey Cannon War, you can also check out some of the history right here on campus.
Well, to learn more about the Cannon Wars as well as other student activities, we have a lot of documentation here in Special Collections University Archives, which is located in Alexander Library, which is the home of the Rutgers University Archives. There's also on the library's website, there's a link to Special Collections University Archives, which will have a number of sources that will be identified for those who are interested in various aspects of Rutgers history.
Years later, the feud between Rutgers and Princeton isn't over. The Cannon Wars live on. For RUTV, I'm Angelica Fattal.